Tran. The gentleman from Alabama.
Thank the Chairman. Chairman Bernanke, thank you for appearing before the committee today, for your professionalism and your service to our country. All of us in Congress appreciate your willingness to make yourself available on countless numbers of occasions, both to congressional committees and to individual members as we've confronted this crisis. So I thank you. Over the past year, we've witnessed unprecedented government involvement in the financial markets. For some time, Republicans on this committee have expressed a growing unease over the magnitude of federal government involvement and manipulations of our economy. Trillions of dollars of capital commitments, guarantees, loans have been extended. What started out last year as a large but temporary stabilization effort to prevent a financial collapse has evolved month by month into seemingly a permanent government intervention regime. This included ad hoc bailouts of institutions deemed too big to fail. Many of the competitors of those too big to fail corporations deemed too small to save are no longer in business. Today I read with interest your op-ed in the Wall Street Journal acknowledging the need for an exit strategy, something Republicans have called on since last fall. Simultaneously, the Obama administration has been spending a staggering amount of money to fund an economic recovery and stimulus that is slow in coming. It's been almost half a year since Congress passed a $787 billion so-called stimulus bill, and yet we continue to see record job losses. Unemployment has spiked to 9.5% and seems headed higher. Your testimony predicts that the elevated unemployment will last through not only this year but next year, confirming that. And that's despite the administration's assurances that if we passed a stimulus package, unemployment would peak at 8%. Other federal government interventions have failed as well. The administration's $75 billion foreclosure prevention initiative, intended to keep 3 to 4 million homeowners in their homes, has so far offered only 220 trial loan modifications. At the same time, the private sector and private efforts have resulted in millions of homeowners staying in their homes. The American people can be forgiven for increasingly asking tough questions about these enormous government outlays and interventions, because so far, Mr. Chairman, there has been very little bang for the taxpayer's buck. It's not only these past expenditures that give us pause, but it's the multitude of new proposals coming from the Obama administration and their allies in Congress, calling for more government control and management, from health care to energy to financial services. One of the central questions the committee needs to answer as it considers reforms to our financial regulatory system is whether regulatory power should be centralized in the Federal Reserve at a time when our country is facing unparalleled fiscal and monetary policy challenges. The Fed's made some big mistakes, and historically the board has done a poor job of identifying and addressing systemic risk before they become crises. A prime example of this is troubled lender CIT, which was allowed to convert to a bank holding company last December and was placed under the Fed's supervision, only after the Fed declared it was adequately capitalized. This inability to assess risk once again threatens to undermine a fragile economy and erase the $2.5 billion in taxpayer funds provided CIT under TARP. The Obama administration has proposed a regulatory restructuring plan that would make the Fed responsible for first identifying and then regulating those financial firms that, in the Fed's view, are systemically significant and for preventing systemic shocks. Republicans believe that the Fed's core mission, the conduct of monetary policy, will be seriously undermined if its regulatory responsibilities are expanded in this way. Let me conclude by saying at a time when our economy faces serious structural problems and the threat of inflation if we maintain our current physical course and spending patterns. A distracted and overextended central bank subject to potential political interference is a luxury we cannot afford. Republicans believe that relieving the Federal Reserve of its current regulatory responsibilities and focusing it on the core monetary policy mission would enhance the Fed's ability to execute an effective exit strategy and ensure it sets interest rates that are greatly affect both individuals and small businesses with a single goal in mind: sound monetary policy. The proper conduct of monetary policy is the best way the Fed can serve the American people. Asking the Fed to serve as a systemic regulator is just inviting a false sense of security that inevitably will be shattered at the expense of the taxpayer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from